Gene.
There you
It's true though. All right, let's go ahead and go into the team racing. Would you guys number one? Did you actually like the format? Because it was actually only the second time that we've actually tried this format. Did it? And Paul got a chance to see it, but Francis, you're completely new to it. So give me your take on the team format race.
Your virgin thoughts.
My virgin thoughts team relay race. I'd have to say I really liked it.
Hold on.
Overall, I really liked the format.
Were you a pilot or were you the pit guy?
Pilot.
Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, with the relay race we did, we had 3 pilots, essentially 2 main and 1 backup. It was really nice because it wasn't just about racing. There was strategy, there was communication, and there was kind of some physical aspects behind it all. I learned a lot about it watching some other team strategies as well as what we had going on. I also learned that sometimes 3 quads is not enough. So it was really cool to see it, and it was a nice break from just trying to hit the gates as fast as possible and more about battery management, watching your gates, being practical but still keeping speed involved, and being able to land on a target and make everything work when you need it to as soon as possible. So it was better than just trying to hit the gates, and it made it more fun to me.
Okay, cool. Did you have problems with the landing pad? Because just for the viewers, what we did was we had a 6x8 feet tarp, and then we had a smaller net on top. And the goal was that you always had to land on the tarp before the next quad with a full battery can take off. So, did you find that difficult to hit that?
It definitely wasn't easy, especially because the color of the tarp was brown against a brown dirt ground.
I know, I'm sorry.
No, it happens. But I mean, it added I mean, that's another thing with the strategy. Like, how should you do this? Should you hit the net as fast as possible? Should you have 2 guys standing there with a net or a sheet? So that kind of added to it. Overall, we just decided to try and land as quickly as possible. In the actual race itself, we didn't land very often. We wrecked quite frequently, unfortunately, but it did add something else that you had to strategize with and think about when you were thinking about your game plan on it.
Cool. Paul, what you got?
Well, so the question was it hard to land on the tarp? I never got that opportunity. I was just what's the word? Plagued with technical failure throughout the entire thing. First time somebody video stomped me and I just went down. Second time I lost RSSI, which is your radio control connection, and I flew up into the ceiling and just obliterated my quadcopter. I haven't even picked it up yet because I don't want to. Well, I mean, I picked it up at the event, but I haven't looked at it yet since I've gotten home because it's just so far destroyed. So I didn't get that opportunity. But that being said, even though it went horribly for me, and I think in the end it kind of went poorly for our team, it was some of the most fun I've ever had racing because there's so much more depth to it than just going around a course. Don't get me wrong, I love going around a course. It is one of my favorite things ever. But this takes it to a whole new level because there are so many more layers on top of just individual racing.
It's tough. So, but what do you think of the overall format? You still think it's a good format?
I think it's a great format.
So, how did you guys communicate with your pits? Or did you just have a strategy that you went by, or did you just go with?
Luckily, we had a friend hook us up with some radios, which definitely helped in the communication factor. We also had some basic hand signals figured out because we were lucky enough to be able to visual communicate between. End result, communication and goes well. Things broke down, and you had to learn from that. But it definitely added a very factor to the race, that's for sure.
It's a fun format. So for the viewers' sakes, If you didn't watch any of the videos, which you should, by the way, because there are plenty of videos out. Paul has a good video out. Francis, do you have a video out yet of the
That's
race?
later in.
Come on, chop, get to it. Anyways, we simplified the track. By the end of when we started the 100 lap race, it was essentially an oval with only the timing gate. So it was very NASCAR style, and the pit areas are basically the tunnels in between the big long straightaways. So what I noticed when I was in there was, uh, number one, I didn't think there was going to be as many wrecks as it did occur, but there was like you guys were not the only ones, okay? Like half the teams wrecked out. Like they hardcore wrecked out because they were going fast and they hit stuff. And like a few of them hit the signs up top. I didn't even know how they did that. I was like that sign's really high. But it was actually amazing because I didn't think anybody would wreck. It was just a big oval, but uh, hey, I guess when you're pushing as fast as some of the people are. By the way, Francis, when you were racing, I knew who you were because of your blades and how quickly you spin your blades. That thing is loud, by the way. But it was
Te-
really.
a lot of teams suffered from technical failure, like myself. It ended up that a couple of teams got signal stopped, a couple of teams lost RSSI, like myself. It's just there. That was a big issue for the majority of teams. I actually did end up crashing out once myself, but neither here nor there.
Yeah. But uh, it was interesting how Ready Made RC won, right? And they were the ones defending their title. But towards the end, when you saw them race, they finished because they stopped trying to race. They were actually the slowest chip like to run for like 25 laps. It was not going fast at all, but it was very consistent. And like whoever was doing it, he had a lot of patience because I didn't think anybody could go that slow, and they just kept lapping and they won that way. Detroit Multi Road had a chance to catch up, except one of their guys crashed for whatever reason. The next person took off, immediately lost video signal, but he was taking off so fast he smacked right into a wall and blew out an ESC. And that pretty much won it for Ready Made RC. And then Team Big Whoop eventually got back up, and they finished second. Although I'm not sure how far behind they were by the time that was all said and done because there was a time limit to it. And then by that time, most of the teams have already wrecked out. Do you guys remember how many laps you did, or did nobody tell you?
I'm not sure for the race itself. I know qualifying, we qualified third with 23 laps in before we had some issues. But as far as the race itself, I'm not too sure.
We had like 13 or something. It was pitiful.
Hey, it is what it is. You could have fun another time. Anything that you would want to improve on the team race? It's like in terms of the
I'd
format.
have to say communication as well as one thing with the ready-made RC crew, they had the video transmitters where they power on by pressing the video transmitter. So they could have a quad powered up, ready to go, and then turn the video on when they're ready to take off. Whereas something with us, we'd have to hold the quad, plug it in, set it down, arm the quad, take off. So that right there is a very simple technical advantage that I think made a big difference. But just that's one thing that I think would probably change a lot, as well as just the basic communication and practice a little bit more beforehand as well.
Cool. Any improvements you would like to see, Paul?
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts. The first is let's put the pilots near the pitting crew. That way we can visually actually see and say, like, for example, Francis was trying to arm his quad. Turns out it was my quad that was on the ground, even though we were on the radio kind of going back and forth with them. So if we could physically be in the same space as the pit crew, that would be a huge help. The marshals were too slow, and the marshals were clueless. I'm sorry, but that's just the case. They didn't know which quad was mine, so we didn't know until about 8-9 minutes later that my quad was totaled and that there was nowhere to go because we just couldn't ascertain whose quad was whose.
Yeah.
And that I don't blame that on the marshals, but I do blame that on a lack of a system for understanding whose quad is whose. So that could be, like putting a sticker of like Team Red on it or something like that, just so that we would be able to tell whose quad is whose, so that when something horrible like that happens, we can adjust our plan and move forward. But we were basically grounded for like 8-9 minutes because of it. Technical issues ruined our run at it, but that's the environment was pretty rough on RC signal, and sometimes video signal, but usually that was actually pretty good, considering. And yeah, it was awesome. It was good. It was a good first run at it, but I think there is definitely room for improvement.
Well, I actually agree with you. I think so. Marshaling is really difficult because for marshaling, for us, the first thing that comes to mind is safety, right? We can't just go out and run, grab your quad, and hope that nobody hits us. So that's the difficult part, especially if it crashes in an area where it's high traffic, like the timing gate. But I will say that is probably the single best suggestion that we did not think of until it was too late. Was to have each team somehow configure their quads to where we can easily tell the team your quad's down, the next one needs to go up, because you shouldn't have to see your quad before the next quad goes up, because that's really difficult. The issue with marshaling is that the marshalers that went out were all volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
So the volunteers, this is their first time ever seeing such a format, and they were trying to grab stuff while things were flying above them at like 60 miles an hour. So obviously we told them to go slow, just for the fact that like we can't have a quad hit a person. That that'll just end the race right there. Period. Everything comes down if we do that. But I definitely like the idea of like either putting a sticker or a certain color on each quad so that we can identify who belongs to what quad. Eventually, we figured it out a little bit which quad belongs to which team, but it wasn't soon enough. So yeah, definitely an area of improvement for us on that. Any other thing? Anything else to say? Any stories from the team race? No, good. Okay.